Hi, Max. Thanks a lot for making yourself available and scheduling this interview call. I really appreciate your time. And in this brief interview, we are basically going to go through your PE licensing journey. You haven't only cleared the FE exam, you are a fully licensed professional engineer now. And as we were talking earlier, one of the very first emails that I saw from you, actually, when you enrolled for my FE course, was back in May of 2019.
Yes.
And fast forward December 2020, within a space of about 1.5 years, you basically got everything done. And had it not been for pandemic, as you were mentioning before, you would have gotten the PE and FE, both of them out of the way within probably 8 months.
Yes.
Which is amazing. So I would like you to sort of walk through. Let's start with what motivated you to get onto this journey, basically, right?
First
With
and
your
foremost,
FE. Hmm.
for sure. First and foremost, thank you for having me. So I've been in the industry of power systems engineering for about 9 years now, and at that time I was probably 6 or 7 years in, and I had the experience, I had the technical aspects, but I feel like I was kind of lacking in potential. So I decided to go ahead and pursue the PE license, but of course, when not having the prerequisite of the FE exam or the EIT in place, I decided to go ahead and start from, the beginning or the ground up. So as I was searching around, I want to say in early 2019 for other FE preparation courses, a lot of them were pretty expensive. Some of them I had reviews from other people that I knew, or I looked up reviews online and saying, the course was reliable, but it was as if the content wasn't delivered in a very digestible fashion. So I stumbled across your profile, I think somehow, and for being fairly new and for the price, I felt like it was a good try. I might as well give it a shot. So as I start to kind of say, I think you have some like a few review modules or videos to give a sample idea of what the course would have been like. And,
Yeah.
based on the presentation, the overall material, I thought it would be a good investment. So I pursued it. And since I was doing the course, I think in May or June of 2019, I was learning a lot and also covering a lot of things that I learned back in college that was easy to remember based on how you presented it.
Right. And when did you graduate? You mentioned 9 years you've been working in the industry, so I assume you graduated 9 years ago, right?
Yes, May 2012.
May 2012. Okay. And then you've been working in power systems industry since then, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And the course you just mentioned is basically the FE course, the FE electrical course. Yeah, not a lot of students at that time knew about it. It's gaining more and more traction. It really helps individuals who need that conceptual review as well. A lot of students are able to basically pass the exam and prepare for the exam using the study guide and the practice exam. But if you've been out of school for, in my opinion, anything more than 7 years, it's
Mhm.
good to get that refresher because that will allow you to get the theoretical portion of things addressed as well as the practice. So for the FE, which resources did you use primarily? So you mentioned my online course for the FE electrical, and I
Yeah.
assume you also use the study guide, right?
Yes, I used the FE study guide that I purchased off Amazon,
Right.
and there was another book prior that I had. I think it was like a yellow and green book. I forget the name.
Lindeberg, I think a PPI
Yes.
book, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but the way the way the material was presented in that book, it wasn't very easy to comprehend unless you had a teacher such as yourself to really break it down in layman terms. So I tried to do it myself, but it wasn't really sticking. So I decided to use a little bit of that, but mostly your course and the study guide that I got off of Amazon.
Okay. So what is it that you liked about the course? I know one of the biggest challenges that students encounter is the fact that it really covers your entire undergraduate engineering, right?
Hmm.
4 years of undergraduate engineering compressed into 5 hours and 20 minutes and 17 sections. When you took it was 18 sections, but now it's 17 sections.
Okay.
So what do you think stands out for you in terms of the course?
The structure, the overall structure definitely stood out because you started with like the basic math, the algebra, especially when we're dealing with phasors and the angles and that and trigonometric terms and principles. So using that builds on a lot of the stuff that we have to, further on down the lines of your modules use when we're talking about like for faults, for example, like line-on-line ground faults, three-phase faults,
Yeah,
all the different
phasers.
subject
Yeah.
all of the different circuit combinations, motors, generators.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Yeah, so when you're dealing with communication, signal processing, there's a lot of trigonometry that goes in there. And yeah, three-phase system, single-phase system, when you deal with phasors, you have to basically go back and understand the complex numbers, which is in math. So yeah, it sort of builds up like a pyramid, and at the pinnacle, at the topmost, you basically have I would say by the time you reach the end of the exam, students find the second section difficult. I agree. I mean, when I was preparing for the exam, I also thought second section is it consists of a lot more ECE focused topics, right? So it
Yeah.
automatically is more challenging. The type of questions that can be asked can be more challenging as well. But another thing that students probably overlook is the fact that by the time you reach to the end of the exam, you are mentally and physically drained, right? You're done.
Yeah.
So your level of attention, focus, and that energy that also comes into play. And I don't think a lot of students think about it. So it's time management. Everyone focuses on time management, how you can focus on time. But I think you would agree, and it's probably more important for FE. Now you took PE not so long ago. I don't think PE, and we'll come to PE shortly, but very quickly, I don't think PE is as intense on time, where you're really short on time. It gives you the time that you need to solve the problems. What are your thoughts on that?
So definitely you have more time per problem because the FE is 120 questions, I believe. The
110.
PE
Yeah.
110, and the
Yeah.
PE is about 80. So you
Right.
get 42 in the morning and 38 in the evening,
Give or take.
and you
Yeah.
definitely have more time. And because I think it was an average you had calculated it based on like the testing strategy you gave us in the handbook.
6 minutes.
6 minutes or so per question. And so
Yeah.
you really have to pick out the keywords per problem or per, paragraph or whatever problem you're dealing with, and then try to do it. If not, if you feel like it's too much, you got to
Yeah.
move to the next one.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So definitely you're pressed for time on FE, not as much on PE, but as I said, manage your time well and manage your energy well as well. Okay,
Definitely.
and that goes for a lot of things in life as well. We all focus, we all get fixated about time management, time management, time management, and we don't realize, okay, we are not being as productive, or we are not able to get a lot of things done. Sometimes it's not the amount of time that we have. Sometimes when you're completely drained, you still have time on your hand, but you cannot do stuff, right?
Right.
You got to focus on the energy portion of it as well. I'm talking like a health guru.
You have to be healthy taking the exam. You definitely
Yeah.
have to be in the right space.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Personally, a few weeks before FE exam, I clearly remember I was doing 5Ks every other day. You know,
Mm.
Um I like to run, I like to swim, but I sort of cranked up my workout a little bit more. And then with PE, same thing. I wanted to keep you know the physical, because it's really the test of your mental capacity, mental strength, and the physical endurance, if I can call it. Okay, coming back to the FE then. So you passed it in the first attempt, if I remember right.
Yes.
You were
Yes.
using the online course and the study guide, and you got it done in 2019.
Yep.
Now, let's move on to the PE. So right after completing your FE, you enrolled in my PE course, and you basically got the study guide.
Yes.
And looking through the progress, you completed the course, fair portion of the course, and then you primarily used the study guide and some other resources.
Yes.
Uh, Now, you had been trying to get the FE done, PE exam done in April 2020. Then you were trying to get it done in October 2020. And then finally, you were one of the first ones who took the CBT format of the exam and then got it done in December 2020.
Right.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Would you walk me through your PE exam preparation journey a little bit, and help us understand, without going into any details regarding the questions, of course, but how the two exams are different, and from what should be your mindset, and or what should be the change in your mindset when you're dealing with PE?
So I will say this, starting off, at least the similarity of you taking the FE as a computer-based exam and the PE as a computer-based exam, you have a visual of how the screen will be formatted. You have,
Right.
a calculator here, your problems here. your reference manuals, if you get that on one side. And then you can just pretty much situate yourself in the zone, and especially sitting in like a testing center environment, you have to get comfortable. As far as preparation for the PE exam, it was a lot of fundamentals that I learned from the FE preparation. Some of the problems, especially the circuit problems, but with the PE, of course, is more hardline focused, especially with power, into more of depth questions as far as like technical
For
stuff.
sure.
How you can figure this out. And if we all remember, of course, prior to the CBT, you can bring as much material and reference material as you want for
Yes.
the paper-based exam.
Yeah, I took
Now
the
you
open
don't,
book. Yeah.
right. Now it's not open book.
Yeah.
So I was worrying like everybody else, but without saying too much, it's really not that bad if you review the fundamentals, you go over the course, get all the concepts down, and practice on all the problems.
Yeah, I remember just like you, a lot of my other students who were in PE who were trying to take it in April, then trying to take it in October, and they were stressing out. They're like, okay, Wasim, it's going to be closed book. So all of that advantage of bringing the books and this and that, what's like, everyone was scared. And
Yeah.
I think, and it was funny because all of you had just taken the FE, which was closed book, but I think that option of sort of legalized cheating, if you can call it, with the open book, it seems so attractive. But to
Yeah.
be honest, some of the most difficult exams that I've taken, including PE, are the ones which are open book in my
Mhm.
undergraduate studies and my graduate studies, because now there's no limit, right, as to what is fair game and what is outside the scope, or what is inside the scope type of thing.
True.
So I think you explained it perfectly. If you have that depth, right, which PE requires, if you have good familiarity with the reference handbook, and you've got the concepts in, and you can basically solve the problems. That's it. There's
Exactly.
nothing more, nothing less, right? With FE, it's very broad, so you have to very quickly tackle different types of concepts, right? Starting from math all the way to software and everything in between. But
Right.
with PE, I personally think that, in my opinion, Max, PE exam is a lot more fun to prepare for. Won't you
I,
agree?
I would agree, Wasim. I think it's much better because it's, especially with me being in the industry already, I know what I'm working on and I can actually see the problem as I've probably done it for work a few times. And then studying for it is not like I'm learning something all over again. I can apply my knowledge to this problem and prepare for it a little bit quicker.
And it helps you with your work as well, right? How many times at work we get a chance to basically go through the lectures, go through the fundamentals, look at the fault analysis, review symmetrical components per unit system. I mean, I worked as a design engineer for about 7 years, and basically I was using code and everything. But even then, you move from project to project, and it's you have to be, you don't get time to basically, unless it's a very unique problem and you're trying to figure it out, you really don't get time to brush up on the fundamentals. So
Right.
PE power sort of forces you to do that, and that's the best thing I liked about it. And when I developed my course, I made sure that, and when you actually compare my FE course and my PE course, you would agree that I took my time in explaining things in a lot more detail in the PE power, right? To the point where some students are like, Wasim, this is too much depth. But I think they still have that mindset of the FE exam because they want to skim through the surface. Whereas in PE, as you said, you need to go down into the depths.
Right. You want to understand, especially for the P exam, you want to understand each and every item as much as you can, especially with it being CBT. So that way it's all in your mind. And as soon as you see one problem, you see a few keywords, oh, it's asking for this. I recall this principle. You write it out. One thing I will say, I do not like the marker and laminated sheet
Oh,
option
it's not
to
easy.
work out the
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
It delays time if you already went through your whole book, but I was able to work with it.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, most of us don't really use those type of markers, right? So it's either pen or pencil or even stylos, those are still easy. But I'm sure they would have their own reasons. In my mind, I think that's because they don't want students to be taking any questions or anything like that, maybe.
Right.
But it's also good use of it conserves paper as well, because then you start going through papers and multiply it by how many students take it every year.
Yeah.
Sometimes, students have to take it multiple times as well, unfortunately, right? So maybe there's that aspect as well. But yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult. I'm not a big fan of that either, but you have to, I mean, after a couple of questions, you get a hang of it.
And after the FE, I was like, okay, I'm going to get this again. I kind of had a method. The FE, I probably went through 2 whole books just because I was trying to write small and my handwriting is not the best. And I was trying to adjust and then time everything right while working through problems. But the PE, I knew what I was getting into. So I was a little bit better at adapting to it.
Right. Sounds good. And in terms of the PE for the online course when you took, it was I had very lengthy lectures. Actually, since then, I've divided them up, added a lot more content to it as well. I'm glad that you got it done in December 2020, so you don't have to go through that. But you also used a study guide for PE Power.
Yes.
Yeah. How
So
did the study guide help you?
it's one thing to get the fundamentals down, which you did a pretty good job of explaining and breaking down. But until I go through different problems, manipulating the fundamentals and different approaches, then that's when I build the confidence. So basically, the fundamentals is one thing. You have the knowledge, but when you have the confidence in you using the fundamentals and applying them to the problems, then you're pretty much good to go.
Right. Exactly. And then combine the two, and you're set for the exam. All right. Thanks a lot, Max, for your time. I really appreciate it again. And just before we leave, how do you think that this exam, getting your P license is probably like a pretty obvious question, but how is it going to help you in your career within the short term and in the long term?
In the short term, it's definitely opening the door to a lot of opportunities. I was never a designer, but I've been always interested in doing it. Now with the PE license, I'm getting more attention and opportunities to do that,
That's
whether
great.
full-time and part-time. Long term, I have more opportunity to be in a leadership position with my knowledge and my mentoring, my mentoring capabilities that I have now. I can
Nice.
combine the two and have more of a lateral or more vertical movement that I've been seeking for long-term
That's
career
great.
move.
And you would agree, like after going through this process for about a year and a half, right? It took you. So I'm looking at the calendar, May 2019 to December 2020. It really is a challenging undertaking, right? Both FE and then PE, and it is very beneficial in helping you sort of completely review everything and then giving you that confidence that okay, you have overcome these tough challenges. Now you can take on some bigger challenges and bigger roles and bigger responsibilities,
Mhm.
and hopefully all of that comes with better opportunities in
Most
terms of
definitely.
compensation, in terms of your earning capability and recognition and all, right? So both of
Definitely.
those things go hand in hand. So, and one last thing, before we go, why would you recommend somebody to use the courses to help prepare for the exam?
I can, from my perspective of being removed from school for so long and then having to jump right back into a lot of the technical aspects and still working full time, it's very easy to use. It's going at your own pace. It's not like you got to physically report to class and, go out of your way. You can adjust your time properly. And then on the weekends, especially catch up if necessary, if you're falling behind and everything's accessible, easily accessible. And then you can go back and watch stuff over and over again if you can't, comprehend the concept in one go.
Right. Yeah, it's and again, as you said, I mean, it doesn't hold you to attend certain classes. Otherwise, you feel like okay, you're falling back, and then once you fall back, then you know what it's like school, right? In college and university, if you skip a couple of classes, then you tell yourself, okay, what's the point of going? It's rather catch up, and then you get into that vicious cycle where you start skipping classes. I know a lot of students, a lot of friends of mine used to do that. They would start out a new term
Mhm.
very energetic, and then they would skip a couple of classes. The next class they go to, they're like, okay, what is this? This is all gibberish, right? You cannot
Right.
understand it, right? then they fall in that vicious cycle of not going to classes at all, which is not good. So with on demand, you can plan it around your work schedule. And I take two different approaches. For the FE, I know there's a lot of stuff that needs to be covered, so I try and strategically, go through the concepts, more challenging concepts, more time and more detail. Less
Yeah.
challenging concept, I assume that you would be able to figure it out, and with examples and with the quizzes and everything, that would fast track you. Now with PE, everything is requires a lot of detail, so that's why it's a lot more intense. So again, thanks a lot for your time, Max. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. And one thing
And
I must add, we probably should have talked about this earlier. You are very responsive. So if I had a question about the FE material or a question about the PE material, I don't know how you do it because I know you're already a busy man. You responded to me within a couple of days with a very precise answer. So I do appreciate that.
thanks a lot. I try to do that. I try and respond to students within 1 to 2 days, 24 to 48 hours, because that tells me two things. Okay, that tells me that okay, my student needs to have this address, and if you're like me, in a lot of cases, if I don't get something sorted out, I don't move past that. Okay,
Right.
which I don't, to be honest, in my opinion, which is not a great strategy, but it makes sure that you are not going to gloss over stuff, right?
Right.
You'll make sure that you understand it, right? The downside is that if the next thing is not related to this thing, then you're just wasting time, right?
Exactly.
So if you can seek out help, somebody who can address that, then yeah, that is more efficient. And I assume that that's where the student is. And if I can, assist the student go past that point, it will just help him or her overcome that obstacle, and they can continue the pace, because losing momentum is one of the biggest reasons why students give up on these things. I know some students who have been planning to take these exams for multiple months. Once it goes past 6 months, procrastination kicks in, and obviously life happens. You can get distracted, you can have other things that come in way. So that's why you got to keep that preparation timeline short and tight, and pack a nice punch, and get done with it. you know
Right.
so if I can help address a question as soon as possible, I assume that the student will be able to go past that and
Indeed.
continue with the pace. So yeah, thanks a lot for your kind comments and
Thank you.
appreciative
No,
comments.
you're welcome.
So yeah, and best of luck with your career, Max.
Much appreciated.
And I'm sure that in the coming years you're going to do really well.
Thank you, Wasim. I appreciate
And
it.
just make use of your PE license and become the best engineer out there.
Oh, yeah, I will. I most definitely will. I appreciate it.